What are your thoughts on zoning and ordinance variances? Do you think we need to better monitor and enforce our ordinances?
So that one, I have to say that we right now in the city of Ackworth are going through a great shift in our planning and zoning rules, regulations right now. And no one um, has hardly been in these very life changing decisions that are coming down in the next less than a week, and no one seems to. And I know no one is such a but not saying no one, but it's very few people who are, I feel, that are really looking at the changes that are about to be made in our planning and zoning. Yeah. Right now, yeah. You might want to answer that question right now, but that yeah, that right there is because I find that it's frustrating in a way to see that citizens come in upset about how things are being zoned, how how things are property are being used, or and then when we have this huge change in our planning and zoning, no one's there. No one is really there. And I'm like, so when you come in about a couple of months after you realize that we have just changed the codes or done away with some of these ordinance, then you're going to come in and say, but nobody told me, when they're telling you, hey, this planning and zoning meeting is talking about changing our planning and zoning.
Absolutely. I'll save some time on this one. I think my answer's been kind of long. Yeah, absolutely. That's already in the works. So they're redoing the zoning ordinance as we speak. Matter of fact, when I leave here, I'm going to planning and zoning, and they're going to discuss it tonight. I think those ordinances are going to super tighten up our ordinance out there, and we're going to do. It's not voted in yet, but it's coming with the ordinance. It's going to be an overlay district, which will give for places like the village, and we all know, well, not everybody knows about Seminole, but there was a mess at Seminole, and I think that those fixes are in place. The overlay district will protect the downtown area, so have that extra layer of review. So as being concerned with the ordinances, that one's coming. If I'm fortunate enough to serve, I may be the one that votes it in, because it's going to take a while to work through it. But that tightening the ordinance, that's coming.
All right, last question. People have expressed.
So zoning ordinances is a very near and dear to my heart. We do need monitoring. We do need things that keep things from developing and making it so that we develop in a controlled manner than just an urban sprawl. And so zoning ordinances are updated every few years, and it takes a few years to actually do that update. And so monitoring that and going with the sign of the times. Back in the 50s, we may have had houses that were on acre lots. Land has become a premium at this point, and so do we need to change our ordinances to allow for a smaller house or an infill lot? And then sometimes the lots are not necessarily always conforming because, again, our town was done as a horse and buggy road. We're not laid out in a grid pattern. So maybe we need to look at some of those things. So variances themselves innately are not a bad thing. Variances do not keep with the neighborhood, do not keep with what we've got going on, can be a bad thing. And so that's where we need to monitor, and we need to make sure that our zoning ordinance are up to date. How do we control that? It's by having a zoning compliance officer. And then why do we do that? It's to make sure that we don't end up with businesses in residential districts and residences in business districts. And so all of those things drive to try and push that we maintain our character and our nature. Of the upcoming zoning ordinance, we're going to have a certificate of appropriateness. It's going to be an overlay district in different areas that we have not been able to necessarily monitor before. But it's going to give a little more umph or a tooth to our zoning ordinance so that we can enforce those things. so many times we want to make sure that some people can't do, but don't tell me that I can't do. And so we need to make things where it's even and playable across every level field.
Oh, obviously, I do. I know that we have to be consistent in how we manage our ordinance, our variances. We can't give one variance to one person and a different one to somebody else, or deny one and give one to somebody else. So I think what we need to do is, and I've seen this before, it's where if somebody's asking for a variance in a particular area, let's look and see how many variances have already been given there. And why? Is it something that maybe we need to go back and relook at our zoning? Because a variance should be a last resort. If we need to go back and redo our zoning, we really need to have that conversation. But as far as just, we have to be consistent, we have to be fair, and if it affects a community, I've always felt that the people that live in that community should be able to sit down and talk to the folks, the individuals that are trying to get that variance, to find out what the concerns of that neighborhood are. See if there's anything that builder or developer or homeowner can do to accommodate the concerns of the neighborhood with their concerns of building a home or whatever the issue is. Let them have the first opportunity to discuss it, to try to work it out. And I promise you that if people sit down and talk, they'll find out there's a lot more in common than there's not in common. But we can't just give variances out like candy. We can't do that. And if we're seeing that we're having to give a lot of variances out, like I said earlier, we have to go back and look at our zoning laws to make sure that they're updated, that they meet the needs of the community, so that we can be fair with everyone.